Hey, we're here and we're finally in our new location, at least temporarily. This is our first attempt at recording, and you'll see a lot more of this as the year goes along. But for now, this is kind of where we're recording from for a few months anyway. And we're in Britain. So finally, we're here. Everything's set up. All of the recordings you saw previously for the last 2 months have been based in Canada, which I ended up doing around the New Year. And so this is the first one recorded after January. For me, this is a big step. It's been a lot of work and effort, and I want to talk about it with you. So let's do that after this. And before we get started, how about I plug my Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/Welsh history. If you'd like to join us there, especially this year, it's going to change quite a bit. We're going to have some more things on it for you to see and do, and hopefully be interested in. So be sure to check it out. And if you want to join in, it's just a small donation on a monthly basis, and it'll give you access to some things that we're going to be uploading in the next few months now that we're here. So, Crioso, and welcome back to the Welsh History Podcast. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're doing well. And with that in mind, let me talk a little bit about my last few months. So, the end of January, I moved from Canada to the UK. I'm currently staying with friends, so I'm not in a final location, thus the temporary nature of the look at the moment. And over time, we'll be moving again. And when we move into our final location, or at least the next iteration of my final location, we'll have a different setup. We'll work a bit on the sound, which has been a bit rough. I know from a couple of edits of this that the sound is not perfect yet. We're still working. It might be just a little bit more echoey in this room than in the previous place, simply because I'm aimed opposite of where I usually was, which is up against the wall. So that's probably not helping the sound, and it's a bit echoier than I planned. So I've got to work through that. Hopefully I'll get it all set up and sorted before we get to the next, basically the next 2 episodes will definitely be similar to this. But after that, we're probably going to have a much better setup and system, hopefully going forward. And hey, we might even be in a new location, which again, will make some changes as we go along. My plan is to get a bit more technical with this all as we go. The other thing, as I mentioned off the top, we're going to be working with our Patreon to make it more valuable. How would you ask? Well, now that we're in the UK, nothing stops me from being able to visit sites and to give better coverage of those sites. This is something that I tried to do with a couple of recordings where I had done stuff at the Welsh museums, but the problem was it was done in 2011 and it was very janky. The camera was bumping up and down all the time. I wasn't paying attention to how I was walking or how we were moving, and so thus the video isn't great. So I want to redo it to kind of help with that. There's a few museums, of course, I want to go to, especially with both the Welsh History Podcast, but also with the Roman Britain podcast recordings, because there's more we can definitely do. We can actually go to actual locations. We can talk about them. We can cover them. You can see them if you've never been and you've just heard about them, like, say, Hadrian's Wall. These kind of things are things we can kind of do. But in order to do that, I've needed to be over here. So that's something I've really been wanting to do. So my goal and the idea with the Patreon is to make these videos, put them up on Patreon very first, and then over time release them onto the main video channel so that you can have an opportunity to listen and watch and view all of that as well. And we kind of talk through and go through some of the highlights on that. So I'm excited about that. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back amongst many, many others. And for me, it's all about getting my citizenship, which I will be working towards over the next few years. If you really want updates to that kind of stuff, I could certainly talk about that process. It's been very tricky, shall we say, to get that all processed. To kind of give you a background, so I really don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast. I think I must have, because I've blathered a lot about myself, so I don't know if I've talked about it in depth, but my grandparents, of course, were born in Wales, and they moved to Canada when they were in their 20s and got married and had children, including my father. My father then obviously went on to marry my mother and had his own kids, one of whom was moi. And so because of that, the aspect that allows me to come back to the UK fairly easily, I will say, is that I have what they call a UK ancestry visa that I can actually use. And the very first time I used it was in 1999. Cost a lot less and was a whole lot less problematic than it is now, I would say. But it was still something that was, at the time felt relatively expensive, and it wasn't easy. But of course, at that point, I was coming over with 4 people, so it wasn't so simple. And we lived here for 4 years, moved back to Canada, and moved back before we actually got either citizenship or even indefinite leave to remain, which would have been handy too. And it's something I've always thought a lot about, and I have regretted making that decision, not because it wasn't probably for the best, but rather because I really wanted to do that. That was one of the big things I was really wanting, was to get UK citizenship, and especially for my kids. And not getting that is one of the things that I look back on and think, that was not the best idea. So that was something I've thought long and hard about. And it's been one of the reasons why I wanted to move back in the past. And again, why I wanted to move back this time. The added difficulty, of course, is not only is it slightly more expensive to get the visa, I wouldn't say it's much more expensive by comparison. I mean, you consider that was, 27 years ago now almost. The price is higher, but it's not massively higher. But what I will say is higher is a new additive, which they put on since 2012 or 2013. They've added something called an NHS fee, in which you pay for using the NHS in advance. And they have a set yearly fee, and then you have to pay every single year your visa is valid. And of course, for an ancestry visa, that's 5 years. So I have to pay for the NHS for 5 years. So for me, that was a lot of money because, of course, it was also in pounds, which in Canadian is double. So that cost became quite exorbitant, and certainly something I couldn't have done with multiple kids like I did in the past. But, it's one of those things that you have to deal with, and I'm not complaining about it other than the fact that it was a bit of a surprise when I found out about it and realized just how much extra that's adding to the overall cost of the visa. And then if I have more family coming, that will definitely add to it. So with my wife planning on coming later this year, that's going to add to it. And then we'll see what happens after that. One of my kids might come with her, but they're an adult, so they have to go on a different visa. So there's some different things about it that are tricky. And but getting here, I've really strongly felt was something I wanted to do. It was something I was pushing myself to get to do eventually. My last job that I was in, I kind of knew that was going to be the last one in Canada, because unless I got a job that was somewhere else in Canada, I wasn't happy enough in the area we were in, and I didn't want to move anywhere else in the province. So without going into great personal detail, I decided that would be a good point to move away from Canada, probably once and for all. We'll see. Hopefully that's kind of how I want it to work. We'll see if that's the way it does work. But regardless of that, as I'm in process of looking for work and trying to get settled here, that's where I'm going to take some time to make some decisions. But as all of that gets dealt with, one of the things I am going to start to do is then go out to all of these museums and special historical sites and go through them and introduce you to some of them if you've never heard of them before. Hopefully there'll be something educational. There's lots of interesting things to see in both larger areas and smaller throughout Wales and even in England and Scotland, which of course have a lot to do with Roman Britain. So we want to visit those kind of things. Like the British Museum is, of course, one of the biggest museums in the world. It has tons of stuff in it, a lot of Roman related things, of course, things that other people have been very critical of having, including the Welsh mold cape, which a lot of people in Wales feel like it should be back in Wales, not in England. But all of those things are the kind of things that I want to show off. I want to get you an idea of what they look like, what you're seeing, but also talk about the history of everything, from how these discoveries were found, what we have left, what might have been prior to it. All of those kind of things are important. And I think it's an added bonus to the podcast. So for me, that's where I'm looking at making that a Patreon exclusive to begin with and then move on. Now, I will be clear, that's probably going to take more time than I think at the moment. I'm hoping to have the first one of those coming out in the summertime, because I think that'll be when I can actually have myself in a stable situation where I can actually go other places and actually take the time and effort to make a presentable situation for people and offer something that will be of use for people. And hopefully as time goes on and we get more set up and more organized, we'll be back in the rhythm of regular recordings and everything will be right back where we left it, which is where I want to be when we come to the podcast. We're hitting an important point for Welsh history and the fact that we're entering into the 20th century. We're talking about big, important things that people know about quite frequently, like World War I and what leads to World War I and the aftermath of World War I and then World War II and then the Cold War. And then we right up to pushing the end of the date. I want to sort of stop the chronological side of the podcast at, which is at the year 2000. My goal is to get to there because that's when, and I've mentioned this again, this will be a repeat, but just so you're aware, if you're coming to this particular episode brand new, I always aim to end the podcast there just simply as it's a good cutoff date because that's about the time when we get, the vote for Wales as an independent nation within the United Kingdom, where we get the establishment of what was then called the National Assembly, now the Senate, and all of that creates a modern Wales. Now, if that's 2030 by the time we get there, I might consider revisiting the timeline a little bit. But to me, I think that's a natural cutoff point. The end of the 20th century kind of leads us to there. And then we can go back and we can probably redo things like we've done in the past where we're doing Roman Britain, for example, which I expect to go on probably double the episodes that it was originally, maybe even more than that. We'll see how in depth we can get. I don't want to have an episode on, one item and just spend the entire time there unless it's a really fascinating item. Like you could talk about, as an example, Samian ware, the pottery that becomes sort of the main pottery of Rome, that it's in every household, even in Roman Britain. So you could do a podcast discussing that, but you're not going to do one on maybe, the somebody's knife or something. I don't know exactly how to describe this, but you know what I mean? Like some of it, yes, you could do, but maybe some of it, that's a little bit of a stretch. So my goal here is to continue to do and work towards the podcast. And as long as you are all enjoying it, as long as you feel like it's worthwhile, and as long as I feel like it's worthwhile, that's great. And I want to keep going because I think at the end of the day, it's still important to me that we cover Welsh history. I think it's still important. I've had so many people that have come on board the podcast over the last 10 years of the podcast, by the way, 10 years of the podcast now. And every time someone comes in brand new and they talk about stuff, it's so wonderful to hear them discuss their own history, be it family history or relations or, the fact that they visit Wales occasionally or, they're from Wales and they live here and they know about it. All of these things I think are wonderful. And I'm hoping that that's what the podcast is contributing to. I think I've said this in the past. I want to reiterate this. every time there's a new YouTube channel that's talking about Welsh history, I love listening to them. I love watching them. I think they're great. I think some are really delving into stuff that I don't even know about. So it's great to kind of get that background on some things. Also helps me with pronunciation because let's be honest, I'm terrible at it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to Wales as well, or Britain in general, but Wales specifically, is because my goal is just to get better at learning the language. So that's something I'm going to be trying to attempt to do over the next couple of years to try and get better at that. Because one, I think it's important. Two, it's the language of my immediate ancestors, let alone my ancestors. And it would be nice to be able to hold conversations with my cousins in which I'm able to talk in the language of our ancestors and not talk in English only. Because it feels a little bit left out when you can't speak the language that the rest of the family speaks. So those are the kind of things that I'm hoping to accomplish over the next couple of years. And hopefully I get all settled in and it just makes everything super, super easy. And in 2 months' time, we're right back in the thick of it, just as normal. And there's like no real hiccup. But what I'm going to try and do over the next little while is I'm going to try and record March and April in advance, get those episodes into the can as much as possible so that then if I suddenly have to move because I've got a better or a job that I'm moving to, then I want to not have that also holding over my head, because I think that'll make things difficult. Whereas if I can go, right, I don't have to worry about this. I can just get into the job. I can then get everything set up and flex around the job what I want to do. That's kind of where I want to go with all these things. So that's the plan. That's the outline. For right now, that's kind of where I want to go. I hope that makes sense. I hope it's not too confusing. And my aim, of course, as always, is to try and keep you in the loop. So that's why we did this way rather than doing a regular episode this week. We'll be back on track with episodes next week and the weeks following. But for now, I just wanted to give you a bit of a background of why the episodes have suddenly jarringly gone into a new place. And the sound's a little weird and the visuals might be a little weird and we're still adjusting to everything. So I need to get the camera better because the focus is always not there. And lighting a bit better because I think it's a bit chunky. It's okay, but it's not quite where I want it to be yet. And I think we're not quite there on a couple of other things. Either way, we'll get it all worked out. We'll publish this episode at the beginning of March. And with it, you will have the first kickoff of the new era of the Welsh History Podcast. And one of the big things is to be in a position where May becomes a celebration, because that is when the podcast started in 2016. It started in May of 2016. And so that'll be the 10th anniversary of this podcast. And so I'm hoping to make a big deal about it. And hopefully you'll be there with me. And hopefully you are excited for all the change up and coming. And hopefully as time goes on, I'll be able to share with you videos and photos and different things. Follow me on Instagram if you want to find out more of that. I'm going to be posting more of that both personally and on the Welsh podcast side as I take more photos. I'm trying not to be too doxing of myself right now, just because I don't need to get into where I'm located at the moment. But once I'm in a bigger location and it's more secure, I might be okay with going around and taking photos of the town or the city that I'm in. Right now, it's just a temporary location. So I don't want to get into, here's all this area, because you'd be like, what? And then suddenly I'm not there in a week. So, and it's a very small location, so there's not a lot to take pictures of yet. But that's where it all is at the moment. That's where I am currently. And everything's still an adjustment. I'm still trying to get everything sorted out. I'm still trying to gather enough stuff. I brought my audio equipment and my camera with me. Thankfully, I was given a computer which I can do this series on. And hopefully over the next few weeks and months, I will be, as I said, in a better situation where I'm literally able to carry on everything without too much bother. So hopefully, again, please enjoy, please stay with me. I hope you'll be pleased with everything that comes about. And regardless, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on most social media at Welsh History Pod, or you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Welsh History Podcast. With all of that said, with all of that done, I am so grateful to you all for helping me over the years, and for those that have donated, for those that continue to support this podcast, who've been here, since 2016, or they've been here, in the last year. All of you are really, really making a difference, and you're making this podcast continue where it easily could have ended after a few months in 2016. So with all that said and done, thanks a lot. Thanks for listening/viewing. And if you want to find out more about everything, you can always reach me at the Welsh History Podcast at gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you're excited about things coming up, please let me know. And I'm excited. I hope you are too. And I hope to bring you a lot of content in a very short amount of time. So with all that said and done, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Welsh History Podcast is a member of the Evergreen Podcast Network. To find more information on them, you can do so at evergreenpodcasts.com. Thanks for listening.